came to the ranch asking for work. By sunset, the lonely rancher told her to marry him. Not tomorrow, not next week, before the sun disappeared behind the black ridges, or not at all. Aiko Tanaka had walked for 2 days to reach this place. Her shoes were torn, her fingers were cracked from cold, and the small cloth bag in her hand held everything she had left in the world. She wasn't supposed to be here. 3 weeks ago she had arrived in Silver Hollow with a letter and a promise of work, a promise of a fresh start, a promise that vanished the moment she stepped off the wagon. The man who wrote that letter? Gone. The address? Didn't exist. And the town, it made sure she understood exactly what she was. An outsider, a burden, a mistake. They didn't say it out loud, but she saw it in their eyes. Too foreign, too quiet, too easy to blame. For days she asked for work, laundry, kitchen help, anything. Every door closed, every voice turned colder, until someone finally told her the truth. This town doesn't keep girls like you. That was yesterday. Today she was supposed to leave. Instead, she walked deeper into the valley, toward the one place people warned her about, Rhett Mercer's ranch. A man no one visited, a house no one entered, and a past no one spoke about twice. When she reached the fence, she almost turned back. The wood was broken. The barn leaned like it was tired of standing. The house, silent, like it had forgotten how to be lived in. But Aiko didn't turn around, because she had already run out of places to go. So she walked to the door and knocked. Once, twice. The door opened. Rhett Mercer stood there, tall, still, eyes dark and unreadable. He didn't ask her name, didn't greet her, didn't move aside. He just looked at her, like he was trying to decide something. Aiko swallowed, forcing her voice to stay steady. I'm looking for work. I can cook, clean, mend, anything. I won't cause trouble. Silence. The wind moved behind her, cold, endless. Rhett's gaze shifted briefly to her hands, rough, red, shaking. Then back to her face. I don't hire, he said. I don't keep people. Something inside her dropped. She nodded once, small, controlled. Then she turned, ready to walk back into the cold. Wait. His voice stopped her. Not loud, not soft, but final. She turned slowly, and that's when he said it. You got 15 minutes. Aiko frowned slightly. For what? Rhett stepped aside, just enough to let the firelight spill across the porch. Decide if you're staying as my wife. The world went completely still. No wind, no sound. Just one impossible choice, standing between survival and something far more dangerous. And Aiko realized this wasn't an offer. It was the only door left open. 15 minutes. That was all the time she had to decide the rest of her life. Aiko stood on the edge of the doorway, half in the cold, half in the warmth. Behind her, the valley stretched wide and empty. No work, no shelter, no second chances. Ahead, a stranger, a house filled with silence, and a marriage with no promises. "Why?" she asked quietly. Rhett didn't answer right away. His eyes moved past her, toward the dying light on the horizon. "This place needs a name on it," he said finally. "A house without a woman ain't a home." Aiko frowned slightly. That wasn't the whole truth. She could feel it. But she didn't push, because she already understood something more important. He wasn't offering kindness. He was offering survival. Her fingers tightened around the cloth bag. 15 minutes. 10. 5. The sky burned orange, then deeper, then darker. If she walked away now, she wouldn't make it through the night. Aiko lifted her head. "I don't want pity," she said. "I work. I earn my place." Rhett nodded once. "Then earn it." Silence again. Then Aiko stepped inside. "I'll stay." The words settled between them, heavy, final. Rhett closed the door. The wind disappeared instantly, and just like that, her old life ended. The wedding happened before the sun fully set. No dress, no flowers, no witnesses except an old ranch hand who said nothing. Just a worn Bible and 2 names spoken into the fading light. Aiko Tanaka, Rhett Mercer. Husband, wife, strangers. That night she slept in a room that still smelled like dust and time. The bed was clean, but untouched for too long, like no one had belonged there in years. Aiko sat on the edge of it, hands resting in her lap, listening. The house creaked softly. The wind brushed the walls. And somewhere, Rhett moved in the next room. Not close, not far, safe. But not safe enough to forget what this was. A bargain, not love. The next morning came early. Before sunrise, she was already awake. The cold had settled into the floorboards. The fire had nearly died. Aiko didn't wait. She moved, fed the fire, fetched water, cleaned the table. By the time Rhett stepped into the room, the house felt different, warmer, lived in. He stopped in the doorway, not speaking, just watching her. Aiko didn't look up. "I said I would earn it," she murmured. Rhett's jaw tightened slightly. Then he nodded once. "Eat first." It wasn't much, bread, beans, coffee, but it was shared. And for the first time, the silence between them didn't feel empty. It felt like something waiting to begin. The days settled into a quiet rhythm. Not peaceful. Not yet. But steady. Aiko worked without being asked. She cleaned the corners no one had touched in years, mended shirts that had been left torn, cooked meals that carried warmth through the house. Little by little, the place began to breathe again. Rhett noticed. He didn't say it, but he noticed everything. The way the windows stayed open longer, the way the fire never died completely, the way the silence changed. It wasn't empty anymore. It was shared. One afternoon, he found her outside by the broken fence, struggling with a loose plank. The wood slipped from her grip. She steadied it again. Rhett walked over without a word, took the hammer from her hand. Their fingers brushed, just for a second. Aiko stilled, not pulling away, but not leaning in either. Rhett drove the nail in with 2 clean strikes, then another. The fence held. "Next time," he said quietly, "call me." Aiko met his eyes. "I can do it." "I know," he replied. Something flickered between them. Not soft, not yet, but no longer distant. That night, the air inside the house felt different, warmer, closer. Aiko moved around the kitchen in silence. Rhett sat at the table, repairing a worn saddle strap. The fire cracked softly. Neither spoke, but neither left. At some point, she reached for something on the shelf. The stool beneath her foot shifted. She slipped. Rhett was already moving. His hand caught her waist. Strong, firm, close. For a moment, they didn't move. Aiko's breath caught. His hand still around her. Too close to ignore. Rhett let go first, stepping back like the moment had burned him. "You're fine," he muttered, but his voice was tighter now. Aiko nodded. "Yes." But she didn't step away immediately. Later, when the fire burned low, she found something. A photograph, tucked half-hidden on a shelf. A woman, smiling, standing beside a younger version of Rhett. Aiko stared at it. Then, quietly, she placed it back exactly where it was. When Rhett entered the room, he saw it. Not moved, but noticed. His expression hardened, just slightly. "You don't need to touch that," he said, too quickly. Aiko looked at him. "I didn't." Silence stretched. Then, "Who is she?" Rhett didn't answer. His jaw tightened, and for the first time the distance returned. "She's gone," he said finally. "That's enough." Aiko nodded, but something had changed. Now she knew this house didn't just carry silence, it carried ghosts. And outside, something else was starting to move. The next day, a rider appeared at the edge of the property. Tall horse, dark coat, watching. Aiko saw him first. "Someone's here." Rhett stepped outside. His entire body went still. "Stay inside," he said. This time, it wasn't a suggestion. The man rode closer, slow, confident, like he already owned the place. Aiko watched through the window, and even from a distance, she could feel it. Danger. Because whatever past Rhett was hiding, it had just found them again. The rider didn't stop at the fence. He rode straight through it. Like boundaries didn't apply to him. Aiko felt it immediately. This wasn't a visitor. This was someone who believed he already belonged here. Rhett stood in the yard, still, watching. The man pulled his horse to a slow stop just a few feet away. Tall, well-dressed, eyes sharp with something cold. "Well," the man said, "looks like you finally fixed the place." Rhett didn't respond, but his hand had already lowered, closer to his side. Not reaching for a weapon, but ready. "What do you want, Cole?" Red asked, flat, controlled. Cole smiled, slow, deliberate. "I heard you got yourself a wife inside the house." Aiko froze. He knew. Of course he knew. Cole leaned slightly in the saddle. "Didn't think you had it in you," he added. "Not after what happened last time." Rhett's jaw tightened. "That's none of your business." Cole chuckled, low, mocking. "Everything out here is my business," he said, "especially that land." There it was, the truth. Cole gestured around the ranch. "This place? You never proved you could keep it." Aiko's fingers tightened against the window frame. So that was it. This marriage was never just about loneliness. It was proof. A house, a wife, a life. Something no one could take, unless they found a way to break it. Cole's gaze shifted toward the house, toward her. "And her?" he said softly. "She part of your plan?" Rhett stepped forward. Just one step. Enough. "You don't look at her," he said, "or talk about her." Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Then Cole laughed again. "Careful," he muttered. "You're starting to sound like a man with something to lose." Rhett didn't blink. "I already lost everything once. I'm not losing this." The words hung in the air, and for the first time, Cole's smile faded. Just slightly. "3 days," he said finally. "That's how long you've got to prove this is real." He glanced again toward the house. "Or I take it." The threat was clear. Not just the land. Everything. Cole turned his horse, rode off slowly, like he wasn't worried at all, because he believed he had already won. Silence returned, but it wasn't the same silence anymore. This one was dangerous. Rhett stood there for a long moment, then turned back toward the house. Aiko was already at the door, waiting. "You should leave," he said. "Now." The words hit harder than anything Cole had said. Aiko stared at him. "You don't mean that." "I do." Rhett's voice was firm. "This isn't your fight. You got what you needed. Now go." Something inside her snapped. No. The word came out sharper than she expected. Rhett frowned slightly. "You don't understand." "I do," she cut in. "I understand exactly." She stepped closer. Not afraid. Not this time. "You didn't marry me for nothing. And I didn't stay for nothing." Rhett looked at her. Really looked. And saw it. Strength. Not desperation anymore. "You stay," he said quietly. "You're part of this." Aiko held his gaze. "I already am." Silence. Then, very slowly, Rhett nodded. Not agreement. Acceptance. And in that moment, something changed between them. This wasn't a bargain anymore. It was a stand. Together. 3 days. That was all the time they had. The ranch changed again. Not quieter. Not softer. Stronger. Rhett worked from sunrise to dark, fixing the fence, reinforcing the barn, checking every inch of land like he was preparing for war. Aiko didn't stay inside. She walked beside him, worked beside him. No more asking, no more hesitation. If this place stood, they both stood with it. On the 3rd day, the riders came back. Not 1, 3. Dust rising behind them like a warning. Aiko saw them first again. This time, she didn't step back. "They're here," she said. Rhett nodded once. "I know." He handed her something. A rifle. Aiko looked at it, then at him. "You trust me?" Rhett met her eyes. "I wouldn't hand it to you if I didn't." Something settled inside her. Not fear. Not anymore. The riders stopped in front of the house. Cole dismounted slowly, like he had all the time in the world. "You ready to be reasonable?" he called out. Rhett stepped forward. "She's my wife. This is my land. You don't take either." Cole smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We'll see." One of the men moved. Too fast. Aiko reacted first. The rifle lifted. "Don't!" The word cut through the air like a blade. Everything froze. Even Cole. He hadn't expected that. Aiko stood there, steady, unshaken. Not the girl who had knocked on the door days ago. Not desperate anymore. Dangerous. "You come closer," she said. "You don't leave." Silence. Heavy. Uncertain. Cole studied her, then laughed. But softer this time. "Looks like you finally found yourself a real wife," he muttered. He glanced at Rhett, then back at her, and for the first time he reconsidered. Because this was no longer something he could break easily. Cole stepped back. "Not worth the trouble," he said. "Not anymore." He turned, mounted his horse, and this time he didn't look back. The dust settled slowly. The silence returned. But everything had changed. Rhett exhaled. Long. Heavy. Then he turned to her. "You could have left," he said. You should have. Aiko shook her head. I had nowhere before. She stepped closer. Now I do. The words landed deeper than anything else. Not survival. Not a deal. A choice. Rhett looked at her, like he was seeing her for the first time. Not a stranger. Not a solution. Something real. Slowly he reached for her hand. This time he didn't pull away. You're not here because you had to be, he said quietly. You're here because you stayed. Aiko smiled. Yes. The wind moved gently across the land. The house stood steady behind them. No longer empty. No longer just a shelter. A home. And for the first time, neither of them was alone in it. Ever again.